Hey guys, Nick here, and today I'm bringing you a bit of a fun build that I won't say invented, created on my stream a week or so back. Did a bit of testing, so if you were watching that stream, you know most of what's on this build, and I had an idea for a trait combo with the pets that I thought might work, knowing some things about Star Trek Online coding, but unfortunately it didn't, but it still ended up being a really cool, fun build, so I thought, it's still worth a video, it's still worth bringing to the people, so today, everybody, is my Typhon tank. Just having a bit of fun. I like tanking, and I like to, the odd random build, a random ship that goes, wow, didn't think you could do that with that ship. So, it does have a leg up, being that it is command to command, and I can have Suppression Barrage 3. But the reason I wanted to run this as a tank was the Fortress mode. So, for those who haven't looked at the Typhon yet, where's the console down here in the tactical consoles? Typhon Fortress mode, so it's only usable on this ship. That's the one downside of it. But it is 33 bonus all damage with turret weapon, so if you want to make a turret like tank, this is probably one of the best ships in the game to do that, because you'll get easy bonus damage plus crit severity to energy weapons. And you have the Fortress mode, so when you transform into Fortress mode for up to 30 seconds, flight speed and turn rate is set to 3, disables full impulse, 50% all damage, and 250 bonus all damage resistance rating. And after 2 seconds, enables 8 phaser auto turrets, each dealing 843.8 phaser damage twice per second to the nearest foe within 45-degree arc. So it'll be more if you have a phaser build. As you can see, I'm in an anti-proton bubble, my standard tank weapons that I love, and probably will never change from. Those ones I recommend to everybody, doesn't matter. Budget, 100% maxed out player. Bubble's the way you want to go when you're trying to generate a threat. But the Fortress mode, and I'll hover back over it, basically just puts you into this unmovable fortress. You'll just sit there and hover a little bit, you might move, but you gain 250 bonus all damage resistance rating. So, just as a little example, my endeavors are max for space 653. I'm not missing a single point. I'm meaning I have a lot of damage resistance rating bonuses, health bonuses. I have a lot of bonuses. This ship is not, in its mastery package, isn't meant for tanking. It's a carrier. It's an escort carrier. It's supposed to be a little ship. Plus damage, plus shield points. Nothing in there that says, hey, I'm going to be a really amazing tank because of all the damage resistance rating that I've got and other things. But when we hit Fortress mode, instantly spikes me into the 80%, and say you have a console like DPRM, there's our 85, and certain other things. So, I'm at 85 right now with 2 consoles. There's traits, there's just unique passives in the game that will bring you up. In a hive run that I was doing, with all the bonuses stacked up, I was at like 91.7% resistance rating averaged out. So, I'm only taking 8.3% of what I should be taking. Then you've got your hull regen, and you've got certain other things built in tanks. So it's just one console, and you're incredibly tanky already. So that's just the one benefit for this just fun little build. Alright, so I don't want to talk about too much more. That was just more of my rundown on why I made this. Next up is the weapons. So if you watch one of my tank builds, you know what weapons these are. These are Bull anti-proton beam arrays. Not re-rolled properly. I'll note that. But Bull beam arrays are your best choice for tanking. Then we have the Dark Matter Quantum Torpedo Launcher from the Discovery Legends reputation, paired with the Lorca custom fire controls for the 2-piece and just the general stats that they give. And this is one of the better torpedoes in the game to run on a tank because of the Dark Matter Dissolution, and it's just general, does a lot of damage, and stacks Chemosite Lace Weaponry really well, stacks Entropic Rider really well, and just ends up being a nice option for tanking, seeing that it's a reputation item, so decently cheap to build. You can't move it between characters, but one TFO, 2 TFOs, and you've got it. So it's really not a drama to get. There is a lot of Discovery Legends gear on this ship. being that tanking, it just seems to work with that reputation. But yeah, most of those TFOs are nice and easy to run. I run the ground ones if I'm spamming for the marks. If that if that helps you out, it's ground is easy to build towards. So if you run the ground TFOs, yeah, you don't have to invest much. If you're a new player, you don't have to invest as much into the build to do the higher TFOs and be helpful. Next up, the Deflector, the Warp Core, and the Shield are all from Discovery Legends reputation for the 3-piece, well, the 2 and the 3-piece bonuses that provide. So the 2-piece is 120% hull regeneration. So I'm a tank, I want to be regenning my hull if I'm taking damage. Plus 120% hull regen is the best 2-piece in the game for a tank, and I still don't think it'll be beaten. The new set from the Kidama is rather good, but it's more for damage. The shield and the deflector have nice bonuses to AP, and I'll have a build coming on my Justice soon, showing that off incredibly well. It does a lot of damage now, but it has dropped its survivability down. So if you don't have 653 Endeavor points like myself and every console in the game, it might be not the right choice for you, because you're trading in survivability to do a little bit of damage, and that's not really what a tank's purposes is. You need to generate enough threat, which a 200k-ish tank will do fine. You don't need to be doing 600k. 200-ish to 250, perfectly good amount. That'll generate all the threat you need to keep everybody alive with good positioning, and then just personal preference on what you want from there, what consoles you like, what utility you want to bring. And the Mycelial Lightning, your first weapon attack against each target fires a bolt of mycelial energy at them, dealing, say, round out to around 5,900 electrical damage. So this is just a threat generation. We run this because I'm using a dot tank, but as well you want to get that initial threat. So as you're flying along, it's just tagging everything as you're flying by. So you fly into a group and it's just boom, 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 boom. It's just a straight shot, fire, 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 and it scales with hull. So running tanking, you're running threatening stance, and you're running hull image refractors. So sorry, I'm trying to speak too quickly. As you're going into combat, this is building and building, so this is going to do more damage and more damage and more damage. So every time you hit a new target up to 200,000 hull, it's going to do a bit more damage. And for my impulse engines, I won't say stock standard, but the generic competitive reputation engines, and I'm using the firing mode variant. So if you didn't know, there's a science variant, you'd say attack, an NG, and a psi variant. So one that's off firing modes, one's off heals, and one's off control abilities. So you look at what sort of build am I using. This is a an energy weapon build to a degree. So I want my firing mode to be the proc. I don't want it to be heals. I don't want it to be control. Technically, the heal one could be the lowest cooldown duration, but I also want the cooldown reduction that it provides to my tactical bridge officer abilities, seeing that I use quite a few of those on this build. Next up, my rear weapons. I have the omnidirectional Bowl linked sentry anti-proton beam array. This is the Lobby variant, not the lockbox variant. So if you can see down below, it's part of the set. That's the dead giveaway, that meaning it's the Lobby variant. So if you're ever watching a build video of mine, of anybody else's, or on a stream, if you see, and if they hover their weapon and it's got the set bonus, that means it comes from the Lobby store, not the exchange. We have another Bowl anti-proton beam array. And last but not least, we have the omnidirectional Herald anti-proton beam array, not rolled correctly as well. None of these modifiers are correct for maximum amount of damage, but it's, as you can see, not really massively important for the tank. Your tank, you don't need to be doing 500, 600 plus. You're doing your 200 to 300, 200, 250 in that range. I can range anywhere from 200 to 300 on my day-to-day tanks, and they 80 to 90% attacks in, damage in every time, and they work really well. So it means you're not taking too much, and your survivability is nice and high, and means everybody else is having a good day too. So this is where the uniqueness of this build comes in. So my idea here was, it's a carrier, but it's also a command ship with a tank and a very good defensive console. So I was like, how am I gonna, what's the change to this build? So if you know the trait or you don't know the trait, is called Repurposed Cargo Bay Hangar. So every time, here we go. While this trade is slotted, launching any hangar pet will also launch a advanced Valkyrie fighter squadron. While these pets are essentially identical to the hangar pets of the same name, they will not be tracked on your hangar HUD and may not respond to your hangar commands. So basically, you launch a hangar bay, you'll get a squad of advanced Valkyries, but they will count towards your damage and they will get hangar pet bonuses. And it's not exactly a carrier console, but the first console on the build is the Credence console. So from the Credence Miracle Worker Cruiser, I don't know the exact wording of it, I know it's Miracle Worker. The Dilithium Transponder. So this is 10-kilometer ally buff, immunity to subsystem offline, and weapon power drain. So 2 self and up to 12 allies. So allies counts as hangar pets. So I spawn in all my Type 7s, so I have 12 Type 7s, and I'll have my advanced Valkyries all around me. When I hit the console, that means most of the time my pets will get the damage bonus from the dilithium lace weaponry console. So it ends up being not dilithium lace weaponry. That's how it comes up in the past. It's dilithium lace weaponry, not dilithium transporter. Just that's how I'm used to seeing it. So that means my pets actually do a fair bit of damage on this build, and as well my bowls. So that's why it's a bit of a fun build. Yeah, I know you don't need to do that much, but that's just the fun part of this build is, yeah, I'm doing a bit of a mix. It's like it's a carrier, but it's a tank. But is it a carrier or is it a tank? So it's a little bit of both, but it works really, really well. It's kind of funny how well it worked. I've had some of my best attacks in this ship because of the fortress mode. It's tagging more targets for me as my bowls are bouncing around. The fortress mode is also tagging things for me, so it's hilarious. I've had like almost a 99% attacks in Hive Onslaught Elite with this tank. I had 98.77% attacks in on one of my more recent ones on, I think it was on my stream, or either on the Alt Lexington stream. I just went into a pug group and just went straight in, and it was like, okay, I have everything. Didn't die, didn't really feel a thing, and it was fantastic. Next up, we have the Valdor console. Speaking of Alt Lexington, as he flashes on my screen. Shield Absorbative Frequency Generator. So if you don't know this console, you can get it from the Legendary Valdor or the Tier 3 Valdor. It is when below 90% on any shield facing 2.5% chance per shot of for all energy weapons to restore shields for 200% of outgoing damage. So basically just saying is when your shields are below 90, your weapons have a chance to heal them for double the amount of damage they're doing, which is great for keeping your shields up, especially fighting the Borg and a few other targets that strip your shields. As they go down, your weapon procs, and your shields are back to full. So as they're getting drained, they're recharging a hell of a lot quicker than they normally will. And this works amazingly well on AoE builds, especially high-end cannon scatter volley builds. So if you're looking at adding some survivability to your high-end AoE builds, look at this console because it adds in a lot of survivability. Next up, we have the Subspace Fracture Tunneling Field. This is from our most recent summer event ship, the Vovan Obelisk Carrier, I think is the correct name for it. Basically, this is a massive amount of cooldown reduction to our universal consoles. That's the main purpose of this. The jump is nice. The 30% hull regeneration is kind of nice, but you don't really notice it. The main purpose of this console, as I can show you right now, I'll hit this console. It's got a 2-minute cooldown. I hit the Vovan console, and boom. I have 30% of my cooldowns back instantly. So every 30 seconds you get 30% back is massive. Not 30%, I don't know what I'm saying. It's 30 seconds for 25% cooldown reduction. I don't know why I was getting that back to front in my brain. But every 30 seconds to get 25% cooldown reduction back, meaning if you don't have unconventional systems, this is allowing you a lot of cooldown reduction for your universal consoles. If you have unconventional systems and this console, like I'm running on this build, you get your consoles back incredibly fast. So this console here, Reiterative Structural Capacitor, is for 20 seconds. It's not 100% uptime, but as you can see, it went on cooldown instantly, meaning I could hit the console and start cooling it down while it's running, meaning, you might have a 50 to, might have 50% uptime, even higher. Like consoles like Fleet Power Network Array from the Iwani, that has 100% uptime if you have the Foven console and you have enough uncon procs, because you have so much cooldown reduction with these builds now that it's just your universal consoles just have so much more power. Right. Next up, we have the dynamic power redistributor module from the Atlas prototype Dreadnought. It's all promo ship, but I'm just going to explain to everybody if you don't know it. Most people would know it by now, or be aiming for it, have it, seen it, know what it does. But for those who don't, it's basically the best single target healing clicky in the game. So bonus damage resistance, and hull regen. 2 self for 20 seconds. 40% bonus damage while above 80% hull. So with this clicky, you will be above 80% hull. 100 bonus damage resistance rating and a 500% hull regen. So see, I'm sitting at 362 hull repair. We hit this console, my damage resistance rating goes up, and my hull repair rate goes to 862%. So I almost have, what's that? I'm getting my hull back. I'm trying to, I don't even want to try and work out the numbers. Every 10 seconds or something. Might not be that quickly. Somebody out there could probably tell me how fast I would be getting my hull back. My 300,000, my hull in, not my 300,000, my almost 200,000 hull when everything's stacked up. How quickly I'd be getting that back. Next up, we have, as previously mentioned, the Readed Structural Capacitor. So the reason this one's on the build, everybody, is it's a heal that works on the damage you take in. And it's not capped. So the more you take in, the more you're healing. And you're going to heal your friends too. So it's not... With a console like Prototype, I call it PRP. Protomatter Field Projector, that's just hull regen and shield regen. Whereas this is, if I'm in the middle of a Hive Space Elite, this console is healing me for a massive amount because I'm taking a massive amount of damage. So if you see, it says, to target or self for 20 seconds, heal self and allies within 4 kilometers for 25% of the damage taken in previous second for 20 seconds. So as you're taking in millions of damage every second, it's healing you for 25% of that, plus everything else you've got running. So it's just a massive heal in those initial bursty moments. Next up, for a bit of utility on the build, the Tachyo Net drones from the Bozeman Intel frigate. I can never remember what class of ship. I know it's the Bozeman and it's Intel. I can never remember the right class of ship. It's I know it's a 5-3. Pretty sure it's a frigate. But it's here for a combination of two things. It's here for its crit chance and its crit severity passives, and then its activation sequence. So, as I'm not in combat, so for those who don't know, it's minus damage resistance rating, so meaning it's a debuff console every time the person's in the field and it crits. But that means it's also an AoE bubble, and it'll reveal cloak ships, and it knocks shields offline for 3.6 seconds every time this console crits. So, as my voice is getting a little tired, sorry, just going to take a moment break. This is great for 45 seconds. It's a shield offline damage resistance rating, a negative damage resistance rating console, and a bit of damage. So it's just a very nice utility console to have on these builds, and it's a ship that most people want to fly. It's a Intel Miranda. It's in the C-Store, and it's a very versatile little ship. Next up, the two-piece console from the Lobby Store, the Bowel-Linked Sentry Coordination Matrix. 35% anti-proton damage, 3.9% hull capacity, removes an incoming control effect, and makes you immune to control effects for 5 seconds every 30 seconds. So the passives on this console work really well for tanking, because tank, we want more hull, we want more anti-proton damage, and we don't want to be controlled. We don't want to be tractor beamed. We don't want to be, gravity welled. We want to be able to move and be able to position ourselves where we need to be. And the two-piece bubble weapons chain additional time, so more chaining, more refraction means more threat generation, means more targets that we are hitting. And other anti-proton weapons gain Bowel Refractions. That's why I can get away with running my Herald Omni, because my Herald Omni also has my Bowel Refraction because of the 2-piece bonus. And Bowel Refraction, each shot chains to an additional target for 5% of the attack damage. So just more refraction. My other anti-proton weapons, so you're opening up different options for weapons with your bowels, and just allowing just more options in your build. Next up, a passive console, bioneural infusion circuits from the Lobby store for 29.5 hull capacity, 29.5 control expertise, and 26.2 crit severity. This is just pretty self-explanatory. Those are all great stats for my tank. Plus crit severity, a bit more damage. Plus hull capacity, more hull. And plus control expertise, more control on my... Where is it? Down there, my gravity well. So I can control things better. I'm a little bit tankier, and I do a little bit more damage. First up in the tactical console slot, we have the Fortress mode from the Typhon. So if you have this ship, you have this console. Basically, it's explanatory. And I read through this console at the start of the video, so I'm not going to go through it again. But basically, this is the key part of this build, was the Fortress mode console. Next up, we have the Lorca's custom fire controls, as I read through it earlier, but I didn't read its stats. Basically, it's another passive console with a nice 2-piece. Yeah, you can take it or leave the 2-piece, but it's nice to have because both weapon and console are rather good to have on your builds. So we go, yay, we like both weapons. We like the weapon, we like the console, so we like the 2-piece. Just nice to have. Next up, we have the what I like to call colony consoles, called colony attack consoles, but the energetic protomatter matrix infusers modified with anti-proton and kinetic. So this is a 25% chance to apply restorative protomatter matrix, 7.6 thousand hull healing, 5% of max hull every 2 seconds for 10 seconds, and 1000 shield regeneration every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. So seeing that I have 2 of them, it's a 50% chance when I hit my firing modes. So my fire at will or my torpedo spread to give me some healing and my hull healing and shield healing. And last but not least, we have the Fakiri Torment Engine from the Klingon story arc. I can never remember the names of things. I'm shocking. Leap of Faith. Leap of Faith, Fakiri Torment Engines. Basically, I'm not 100% on the math, on the science, but it increases non-hazard dot damage over time, our entropic riders, dark matter dissolutions, and it also is applying a non-hazard dot, a 10% chance to apply non-hazard dot, dealing 1770.4 fire damage per second for 5 seconds. So we call these anti-proton tanks dot tanks, and this is part of it. Entropic Rider, Fakiri Torment Engine, Dark Matter Dissolution, our Bowel Refractions are our dot tanks. Damage over time abilities that we bring into these builds. And my 2 hangar bays are Elite Type 7 shuttlecraft from the Iwani. Basically, these are here for the massive amounts of debuff. So each pet has attack pattern beta 3 and close in sensor pass 3. Attack pattern beta 3, if you didn't know, is minus 50 debuff. I have 12 of them. So that's 12 times 50, that's 600 negative damage resistance rating to multiple targets because they also have fire at will. And close at sensor pass, which I don't know the exact numbers on the debuff, but that is even more debuff. So these pets just provide so much debuff to the team that you might have more damage tanks, or you might have a utility pets or damage pets, but these will still do a little bit of damage, and they provide so much negative damage resistance rating that things just die so much faster. It just overall works out really, really well. Next up, skill tree. This one I was running Miracle Worker Temporal for the extra hull regeneration, because this ship is, by standard, isn't quite as tanky as like my Justiciar or the Baran, the Styx. So I thought, I want to give myself a little bit of an assistance. So I'm running Miracle Worker Temporal. Temporal is for the Entropic Rider to give myself that extra dot. and plus 50 EPG. So just my dots are doing a little bit more damage. Next up, our traits. Pretty standard on all my tank builds. We have Repair Crews for the stacking, damage resistance rating, and hull repair rate. We have Terran targeting systems for the 15 critical severity. We have A Good Day to Die to allow us to use go down fighting at any hull integrity, and will treat your hull as at most 50% integrity, so you're getting I don't know if it's maximum benefit out of it, but it's giving you 50% bonus all damage straight away and 20 all damage resistance rating straight away. You can use it at any time, and it has a very low cooldown for a captain ability. And with Intelligent Agent Attaché, our next trait, every time I crit, I get cooldown reduction to these abilities. It's allowing it to keep us up rather often. Next up, we have Fragment of AI Tech, plus 20.8 energy damage based on control, maximum at 30 damage. This is category 1 damage at 300 control, and plus 50 control expertise. So plus 50 control expertise will help my gravity wells out and just give me a bit more utility. Next up, we have Context is for Kings. If you take damage in the past 3 seconds, 3 all damage resistance rating stacking to 10. And if you did not take damage in the past second, 1% bonus all damage stacking to 10 for 10 seconds. So it doesn't say it here, but these stack to 10. So because I'm a tank, it's going to be 30 damage resistance rating, not 10% damage, which is still fine. None of these, no other traits is giving you 30, or not all damage, 30 damage resistance rating. That's category 1 damage resistance rating buff, but still rather helpful to have. Next up, we have Self-Modulating Fire. On outgoing critical hits, your energy weapons and projectiles gain 50% shield penetration for 10 seconds, can trigger once every 45 seconds. So basically just gives me a opening punch when I'm going into targets for the first time, just to help me generate threat. I'll rip through the shields a bit more, do that little bit more damage just to help me get that initial hit of threat. The Boimler effect, 17.5% chance to recover the recharge time of all other bridge officer abilities up to their shared category cooldown. So basically, you'll have a 17.5% chance to bring everything to its global cooldown. As I'm not getting any procs, as I always do. As I try to show it off, I never get any procs. But basically, this can bring your... If you get the right proc, it can bring your abilities to their global cooldown and all of them. So that means that's their lowest possible cooldown. Everything has a minimum cooldown, so you can't just say have 3 fire wills running. It has a minimum cooldown, so you can only have 1 copy running at a time. Next up, we have a whole lot of X's. If damaged while below 25% hull, you'll receive 76,000 hit points and 578 shield regeneration for each facing. So basically, I call this a oh shit heal. It's a passive trait, and it has a 1 minute cool. Oh, I've changed it. It used to be a 1 minute cooldown. I just realized now this ability can only be triggered once every 2 minutes. That used to be 1 minute. They've secretly changed that. That used to be 1 minute. Oh shit, passive. So basically, if you drop below 25%, you'll shoot back up to about 75%. That's how it works out to be most of the time. So it's about a 50% hull heal. But it can save your bacon. If you have nothing left and you're running out of steam, you just need that bump for a few seconds to keep you going. This is perfect. Because you don't need to hit it. It'll go off in every time when you get that low every 2 minutes. And it might save your bacon, when you need it. And last but not least, unconventional systems. Using a control bridge officer ability gains minus 7% recharge to universal consoles. So every time you hit a control ability, they're listed on the wiki if you don't know them. They're abilities like Gravity Well, Tractor Beam, Jam Sensors, and Scramble Sensors. You get minus 7% on your cooldowns for your universal console. So that works out to be about 7 seconds on most of them. Because most of them are about 2 minutes, 120 seconds. So if you say at 100, it's 7 seconds. It'll be a little bit more than 7 seconds, but on the average, it works out to be about 7 seconds each time. To our Starship traits, we have emergency weapon cycle from the Arbiter, the Kurak, and I can't remember the Romulan version, or the legendary Avenger. On emergency powder weapons, minus 50% weapon power cost for 30 seconds, 20% fire cycling haste for energy weapons for 30 seconds. So we have negative power drain and we have fire cycling haste, just a little bit of a boost to our damage to make sure we're doing enough, but we don't, we're not going over the top. Next up, we have our firing mode extender. We have entwined tactical matrices from the Gagarin. So when hitting torpedo spread, we get fire at will. When hitting fire at will, we get torpedo spread. So that's helping us keep up fire at will 100% of the time, because if you hit torpedo spread, it gives you a fire at will, and when you hit your normal fire at will, it gives you torp spread, just so you're 100% running fire at will if you cycle it properly. Next up, we have History Will Remember. For each foe that damages you, gain 1 stack of History Will Remember 30 stacks, which grant the following until you leave the map. So times 30, 30 all damage, 30 hull regen, 30 maximum hull, and 300 threat generation. So it's all just fantastic tanking stats to boost your threat, boost your damage, boost your hull regen, and boost your hull. And this comes from the Narendra, and I can't remember the Klingon. I don't think there is a Klingon variant. It's the support cruiser. So you look for support cruiser. If you have one of those, that's where these traits come from. The legendary ambassador also has it, and there's a Klingon version. So if you're looking up this trait, look into the wiki. History will remember, and it will show you where its source is, or sources would be the correct phrase there. I'm sorry. Next up, we have Honored Dead. It's another passive defensive trait of mine. After receiving 10,000 cumulative damage, gain a stack of Honored Dead, which adds 10 all damage resistance rating and 1% health regen, maximum 20 stacks. So this is 200 all damage resistance rating and 20% health regen. So as some people might note, I'm very well past the cap on category 1 health, I'm gonna say damage resistance rating and health regen. I'm getting pretty high. There's no cap on that, but I have a lot of sources of this, but it means as soon as I go into combat, I'm stacking multiple sources of survivability to get me up there nice and quickly, and meaning I'm not going to die. This comes from either the Exchange for Federation, or it comes from the Sarcophagus Dreadnought Carrier. But same again, if you need to know where it comes from, look it up on the wiki, look up Honored Dead, and it'll show you the sources for your correct factions. Next up, we have Overpowered and Overgunned. On beam and cannon special firing mode, minus 15% weapon power cost for 9.2 seconds, 12.5% fire cycling haste for weapons for 9.2 seconds, from 5 to 10 seconds based on your global crit chance. So my crit chance is quite high, seeing that I'm getting almost the full benefit. If you have a little bit more crit, say a damage build, you'll have 100% uptime, or 100% utilization of this trait, which can have a 2/3 uptime. But for this build, it is still just a nice little... Sorry, as I burp. It has nice, just added little bit of negative power drain and fire cycling haste to just give me that little bit of damage to just round me out nicely. And my 2 T6X traits, Unified Engineering from the Bran, 2 Self and Team. So I have read that back to front. I'm like dyslexic, but not tonight. 10% hull capacity, 10% recharge speed for bridge officer abilities, 10% flight speed turn rate, 10 flight turn rate, 10 flight speed, and 50% hull regen. I'm sorry for all the misspeaks tonight. I'm just going to leave them, guys, because I'm human. You can hear my voice is going, so I'm not going to be able to get a second take of this in. So, guys, apologize for the misspeaks, but I'm trying my best. And last but not least, we have Repurposed Cargo Bay Hangar. Launch Advanced Federation Valkyrie Fighter Squadron when launching a hangar pet. So this is kind of the mixed tank of this. This is allowing me to have technically 3 bays of pets. So I have a bit of a damage pet and the debuffing pets from the Type 7s, and it just, with the credence, it gives me damage into my pets, but I'm also have all my tank stuff that I normally have. So it's a really cool, unique build that I'm really enjoying. We have advanced targeting systems. We have 20% crit severity, Precision for our 5% crit chance. Tyler's Duality for our crit chance based on hull capacity. So I'm a tank with hull, with history, remember, and threatening stance on, so I will get to 200,000 hull easy and gain 7.5% crit chance once I'm scaled up. Next up, we have Radiant Detonation Matrix. To target, 2.5% chance for 2,000 radiation damage in a 1 kilometer radius at a target, and removes 1 buff. So this is just an extra part of the dot tank. You know, we're going to add a little bit of radiation damage to them. And this can be procced off the refractions, I believe. I might not be right on that one, but it just, everything spreads around really nicely. A little bit of damage bonus. And last but not least, Advanced Hull Reinforcement, 12.5% bonus all damage resistance rating. So because this ship standard, or like just stock, has rather low resistance rating, I wanted that little bit of boost at the start just to make sure I was not going to just randomly die to like a high-yield plasma torpedo from the Borg, or whoever's going to shoot a big old torp at me as I'm flying into and just getting buffed up. Next up, we have just a stock standard active space reputation. You can copy from down below. That's basically the same on every single build once you get to tier 5 rep. Next up, we have my bridge officer stations. If you've heard one of my tank builds, we must have suppression barrage on, fire at will, gravity well, and from there on in, it kind of, you know, your fillers. So if you want to copy this build, there are my bridge officer stations. It also RSP, for those you're needing to add a little bit of survivability to your tanks, RSP is a massive help. It's another one of those, yeah, you're healing the damage you take in. So that, along with the reiterative structural capacitor, this console here, say you go into the middle of Hive Space Elite for the first 20 seconds, you hit reverse shield polarity and RSC, and I could almost guarantee you won't die, because you're going to be healing in an incredible amount on your shields and your hull if they go through both. And last but not least, my space duty officer roster. So first up, we have Agent Neural from the Delta Operations bundle. It's the big bundle. It's cost a lot. So if you don't have this one, don't stress. There's a new version of it. It's about a 50% effectiveness, but it's called Dal Al Rel. I don't know the correct spelling on that, but if you've watched Prodigy, it's Dal. So it works the same way. Cause your attack pattern beta to restore a small portion of your hull when firing energy weapons. So I use attack pattern beta, I use energy weapons, and I'm taking a lot of damage. So it's just healing me as I'm going along. So it's rather nice. Emergency Con hologram from the Phoenix store. It's a reset of our evasive maneuvers. So as I hit evasive maneuvers, it goes on cooldown. I hit emergency powder engines, as I can show you here. We'll hit evasive maneuvers. It's running. And it's almost on cooldown. Boom. I hit emergency powder engines, and the cooldown is completely reset. So meaning I can use evasive maneuvers as, well, not as often as I want, but almost as often as I want. I would say that's the correct phrase. It's almost. Next up, we have a 23 of 47. This is for our chance for plus team-wide hull improvement of 10% and command to improve critical chance by 2.5%. Guys, these Borgdorfs are incredibly expensive. I don't say I don't want to rush out to get them. They're a nice little bonus if you have them, but if you don't have them, don't stress out too much. As you can see, my duty officers aren't incredibly special. I'm using Keel L. I don't exactly remember the price of these. Spencer would love me to push these a little bit more than I am, but Keel L is removing all debuffs from self when using emergency power abilities. So my emergency powder weapons and my emergency powder engines, it's removing debuffs from yourself. So just like a cleanse. So just nice to not be debuffed by NPCs and all that. Next up, we have a flight deck officer. Reduce the recharge time of hangar pets by 8 seconds. So I have 2 of them at very rare. So that's minus 8 seconds of recharge time on my pets. And I'm running high auxiliary power after my weapons. So the recharge time on my pets is rather low. meaning I should always have 2 bays of pets out with the extra bay of advanced Valkyrie fighters to give this build the carrier element that I want and the tank element that I want as well. Okay, guys, that's today's build. It's a bit of a fun build. I know my thought process is not fantastic. If you have a question, leave it down below. If you have further questions or just want to comment and interact with me, I highly recommend join my Discord. There's a link down below. Anyway, guys, I'm going to say goodnight. So, everyone, we'll see you around in Star Trek Online. Thank you for watching. If you can, like, comment, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, it really does help me out. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.